Snow.
MJ.
Easter Sunday.
It is, in fact.
I mean, we don't celebrate, really. I took my kids to this Mario Galaxy movie today. That's what we did today.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, anytime you get your kids to actually spend time with you at that age,
So, yeah.
is a bonus.
When they're young adults,
Yeah.
yes.
And they'll appreciate it later. They don't appreciate me now, but they'll appreciate me later.
Someday. They
Yeah.
will. Yeah.
When you lose a parent.
Oh, yeah.
So, we got V and Richard back. We got a lot of good feedback from the last couple episodes that they were on.
Yes.
Yes, always interesting, always a great conversation, and it takes the work off of us. You know what I mean?
Right? I know. Yeah.
We just like...
We don't have to talk as much.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great.
We always love that when we don't have to do the talking.
Because we're like, our guests are so fascinating. Yeah. We're just going to listen and learn things.
Who wants to listen to us? Anyways.
Right?
And we're going to Pod Jam 3 next weekend, and we're not going to be up there doing up on stage. We're going to be with the people.
Thank God. That's how it should be.
Yeah. Keep us off the stage. Off the mics.
Yeah.
All right, welcome.
Welcome. Hi.
All right, so... we had so many subjects to talk about last time. We just didn't have enough time to squeeze it all in. Mm-hmm. And being Easter Sunday, we wanted to talk about the meaning of Easter, and it's not jelly beans and bunny rabbits.
What? What? And Cadbury eggs?
Yeah. Those things aren't even good.
I know that they're really, like, it's all sugar and everything. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I love them so
You do?
much.
Okay, they've not been my favorite.
Right? Yeah, some people don't like the gooey stuff in there, but I'm like, I don't know why I love them. Maybe it's because it's just, an Easter thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And if Jesus were to resurrect, because that's what Easter is about.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
God, I mean, I'm not a religious guy, but please, I mean, that whole thing, we didn't hear from him all weekend until he posted that maniac stuff today. Oh, God, please.
Well, I mean, at the very least, if Jesus were to, come back, could he at least go have a conversation with Donald Trump, his regime, and his supporters about what part of welcoming the stranger did you not understand? I was pretty clear about that one.
Yeah. Exactly. And something that needs new PR people, okay? Mm-hmm. Because the best thing to do would have been to report yesterday that he died. And then today he posts, he has risen again.
They're getting close.
We really don't need that, though. That'll make these people even more nutty.
Yeah. Paula White was already basically saying he has done just as much of sacrificial as Jesus did. So,
oh God.
Yeah, because what he's done is equivalent of like carrying that cross through for hours and miles an hour and then hanging on a cross to die. Yeah.
And no one has been more persecuted than Donald Trump, even Jesus.
Oh, yeah. Don't you know it?
That was a bad. That was a bad.
Wow.
Paula White is the reason why I understand why Journey's breaking up.
Oh. Yeah, but that all just leads into Christian nationalism.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, if Jesus rose from the dead and ascended into heaven and he's king, why we should take over the government and enforce our understanding of things on everyone, Not really, actually.
Yeah, but that's what they say. We actually... obviously our story was that we came out of Adventism, and which obviously we believe is a cult too. But it's easy, you come out and you start listening to this one and that one. And honestly, most preachers online, a lot of them, they start off kind of, at least several we listened to, they started off sounding
I
biblical.
wouldn't call them preachers. I'd call them the Theobro influencers.
Okay, that's yeah, the Okro influence. But anyway, we started listening to some of them, and to start with, they would be talking about Christian things, gospel things, and then after a while, we'd listen to them, and I'd be like, I'm not hearing any gospel. I'm not hearing, this is all just about, we're going to take over the world, we're going to take over politics, we're going to take over, the morals of society, we're going to enforce this, we're going to have a holy nation. And it's just like, where is this going? So that was kind of, I guess, my light bulb, like, this is not Christianity. Like, what is this? We didn't even know what the name of it was. We didn't even know what Christian nationalism was. It's just, we had started.
Although they did start using it
They started using it. Yeah, they then started using Christian nationalism and Christendom 2.0 or whatever they called it. And it's like, what is this?
About what time period is this that occurred?
2021, we leave Adventism and start looking at other perspectives and start, finding some of these influencers online and listening to what they have to say. But an evolution happened. They went from talking about, strictly in the realm of theology, initially it seemed like, to incorporating more and more politics and more, this is what we want to do in society. Leading up into 2024, and then with Trump's re-election in November 2024, after that, it just went full-blown mask off.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was like against the law for churches to do that. Like, in my opinion, then they should lose their tax exempt status.
Didn't Trump undo something about
The
that?
Johnson Amendment.
Yes,
yeah,
it got
trying to.
What's that?
I think he might have even done an executive order to overturn it, and I don't know how that ended up in the courts. Essentially, the Johnson Amendments from the 1950s, where if you endorse political candidates in a place of worship, you lose your tax exemption.
Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah, he did overturn that.
But he overturned that, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. Because, of course, we need, I think the whole thing is, and I've been writing literally Lent reflections and prayers every single day about this whole thing. I've been not always naming it out and out, but the concept, the difference between Christ's teachings of you're to love one another and you're to, turn the other cheek and you're to forgive and you're to be light to the world and salt, which, obviously preserves and adds flavor, but you're not supposed to do this with your sword and you're not supposed to do this through violence. It's, through loving one another and trusting that God will provide for you. And so there's this very much a connection to God and an outward kindness to the people around you. And all I have to do is just quote the actual words of Christ. And it's like, it's a condemnation to Christian nationalism, every single verse, because their idea is take back by power, get it legislated, and then condemn everybody that doesn't follow what we want.
Right, because Jesus said, when he said, take up a sword, what he meant was it was almost as a prop, but they said to lay it down before you actually used it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's one verse where he says to buy a sword, but yet they take that out of context because it's like only a few verses later that he tells Peter, put down your sword. All that live by the sword will die by the sword. So you could probably explain it better, Richard, because...
Well, and the interesting thing about it is there's, 12 disciples in Jesus, and they find out they have one sword. And he says it's enough, and they move on from it.
And then when he does pull the sword out, he's like, put that away. Those that live by the sword are good.
The sword dies.
But it's funny how they use that with the gun issue.
I was going to say,
yeah,
they
just to
take
collect
the
guns.
sword as, grab my AR-15. Jesus would have wanted it that way.
Exactly.
And have 15 of them.
Exactly. No, it's really what it's really come to realize is that there's an American version of Christianity that is not biblical Christ Christianity. It's like
American civil religion.
yeah, which is
Yeah.
Christian nationalism, obviously, but it's not Christian and it's not patriotic. I mean,
No,
that's the
it's
thing
not.
about it. It's not patriotic. It's not religion. It's not Christian. It's just its own pulling together of we're going to dominate the world.
So I think we ought to define Christian nationalism, and there's various groups, various stripes and types of Christian nationalists. But at the core of it is this idea that the United States was founded as a Christian nation, and they do revisionist history to come up with a lot of this about a supposed Christian founding, which there are Christian elements in the founding, but many of the founders are not religious at all, not Christians at all.
A lot of them were deists.
Mhm.
Right.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But this idea that America was founded as a Christian nation and for Christians to be a special privileged class in America that have rights beyond everyone else. For example, many of them say that in their envisioned society, only Christians would be able to hold public office and that sort of thing. And often goes along with this is even a racial element where America was not only intended as a Christian nation, but a nation for white people specifically, and that God supposedly ordained it to be this way.
Which is kind of funny because, obviously we did not discover this place. The Native Americans were here before us. And the Pilgrims come over, to here. And what did the Native Americans do? They did the most Jesus thing ever. Even though they didn't know who Jesus was, they welcomed the stranger.
Exactly.
They fed the stranger.
Exactly. They helped
Yeah.
him
Only to get really
later.
screwed over by
Exactly.
a stranger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the manifest destiny concept goes along with the Christian nationalists, and especially the white Christian nationalists. If you notice on literally government pages now, oftentimes they're posting these pictures that are, that angel picture where she's flying over America, and the wagons are moving west and the natives are being pushed out, and this manifest destiny type thing from back in the day. And that is their concept, that was righteous and that was good. And they are putting all these idealistic pictures up of families going to church, and of course they're all white, and children in school and they're all white, and and this is on government.
And not only are they
pages.
white, it very clearly looks like a 1950s.
The artwork, yeah.
Yes, the artwork,
Yeah.
yes. This like trying to idealize, this what it was. I mean, when and this is all weird, when you grew up in conservatism like we did, we didn't know. It's like this stuff was somehow in the closet, like under the ground. You didn't know this was what was going to then manifest as soon as Trump came on the scene. You didn't, now looking back, we realize there was some things that now we're like, I guess that was kind of racist. That was, people shouldn't marry, Spanish people shouldn't marry white people, or maybe blacks and whites shouldn't marry, there was these sort of discussions and questions, but it was never, we hate these people or whatnot. And so growing up in those spaces, you didn't even realize that was racism.
But following the Bible, though, if it all started with Adam and Eve, doesn't that mean we're all interconnected anyways?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. But I think that's where, people don't understand when, now I read about what happened and the stuff that the conservatives were against the civil rights movement and whatnot, which I didn't even know They don't teach you in school or in the whatever that, the Republican Party and the people in that party are actively fighting,
The
the
Southern strategy.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Southern strategy.
Yeah, and make no mistake, this is long before Trump.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that was long
this is
before.
my
And
Oh,
so
yeah.
now I read this stuff and actually like learn about this stuff because we didn't learn about it before. And it's like, oh my goodness, no wonder, the Democrat side says Republicans are just racist. I honestly didn't know why they said that because I just was going from my personal whatever. And it's like, I don't mind people that are black. I don't mind people that are Hispanic. I don't have any issue with being friends with everyone. I mean, I even, before marrying Richard, I had married to a guy from Dominican Republic for a short time. It didn't work out, but that wasn't because he was Dominican Republic. It just didn't work out.
Right. Yeah.
So,
And I don't think that, like, especially today, I don't think that the majority of the right has a problem. I don't think that a majority of them are racist. I think it's more like a certain element of them. But I think some of them, like you said, don't understand. I think if they were to understand what happened, like in our country's past, then they would be like, yeah, I'm not okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not okay with
once you
people
realize
being
and
treated.
understand it, it's like, this is horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, when you made an interesting point, like we did not learn about that,
Yeah.
and you sort of have to take a deep dive into our history. And I was thinking about this earlier today, like just because I'm on the left, they say that you hate America. No, I love America. I love the idea of America. And I was related to, like, if you had a family member who had gotten into trouble or something like that, you'd want them to correct that behavior, and you have to learn from your history. And not all of our history is good.
Exactly.
We've had dark history. That doesn't mean that you can't learn from that,
Right.
fix that mistake, and move forward and
Exactly.
still be patriotic.
Exactly.
That is the definition of patriotism, as far as I'm concerned, to learn from your past, keep the good while overcoming the bad.
Yeah. And what I think is I think that the people who get into power have realized that, but we can really get more for us
Right.
if we don't have these folks educated about the past.
Well,
And I
what was
think
it?
that's-
Trump literally said,
Uneducated people love me.
yeah,
I
uneducated
love the
people love
poorly
me.
educated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That,
Yeah, and then he also said smart people don't like me.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's
Right.
like, well, I agree. I'm glad we've moved from the uneducated to the smart.
But the thing
Right.
is, this is coming from above, and it's not coming from stupid people.
No.
Okay, this message is coming from very smart people who know what they're doing.
they want the deck stacked in their favor. I mean, I realize that when I say stuff like this too, I'm like, geez, you sound a little conspiratorial. But I'm like, yeah, but they want to get out of paying taxes. They don't want to have to do those things. And they also know that knowledge is power too. So it's like, that's why lately they've been coming up with, we can't teach children what happened in the past because you're just going to make white kids feel bad about themselves.
Right.
What? We all learned about slavery when we were children in school. They briefly touched on it. They didn't go deeply into like the whole, they didn't go deeply into civil rights movement and all that. But they lightly brushed over it. I nor none of my friends sat there and were like going home and saying, it wasn't that like I ever felt ashamed. I did, however, go home and I did ask my mom, didn't you know that there was a war in this country over people owning black people? I did ask the question because it was kind of laid on to me when I was in high school, and I had already had black friends. I'm like, I couldn't even fathom it. I was like, what in the heck? What is
and then
happening?
and then they celebrate the party that was basically terrorist against the United States.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because back then, okay, so things have flipped a couple times
Oh,
through
yeah.
our history, you know, because
The parties are not just a set in stone. This is what they always are. They've moved around.
right, because you know, Republicans of today will always like to say, well, we're the party of Abraham Lincoln. We're the ones that freed the slaves. And I'm like, yes, you are correct. Then why would you want to go around flying the Confederate flag then if you were? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, then why
And
are
at
you
the
okay with
time-
that flag now?
At the time, it was the progressive thing that
The Dixiecrats flew that flag. The Dixie,
too.
it was a sect of the Democratic Party. I mean, they were all for,
the Southern Democrats.
yes.
which is the direction that the GOP is morphing into now, and you can see it more and more all the time
Yeah. And it did start like back
Wasn't it back with
when you were
Nixon?
talking earlier.
with the Southern strategy.
With the Southern
1960s,
strategy.
Yeah.
with Nixon.
Yeah, so it's like you guys can come over to our tent, you know,
Mhm.
and so inviting,
And that was
inviting-
after Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act into law in 1964. They were, obviously
They felt
Southern
abandoned.
Democrats were
Mhm.
pissed off that Democrats passed civil rights.
Yeah, wasn't it that one guy, was it Strom Thurmond that gets a lot of credit for that? Isn't he
Yes,
the one?
he flipped from Dixiecrat to Republican.
Yeah. Because I think he's the one that had something to do with that filibuster. Like they finally had broken the previous record of doing the talking filibuster or whatever. I think it was him before, and it was that issue.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was an odd guy.
Mhm.
When we were back in South Carolina, we visited the Capitol, and there's a statue of him there, and he used to be governor of
Mhm.
South Carolina and then senator for decades. But he actually signed into law automatic capital punishment for lynching, because the last lynching in South Carolina happened in 1947 when he was governor.
Oh, wow.
And even though he was totally pro-segregation, for whatever reason, he, felt like they had to bring lynching to an end. And so,
Well, that's at least good. I
Right.
mean,
yeah, it's interesting, the psychology of it. So we don't want, whites killing the blacks, but we do want to segregate them and subjugate them, sort of thing, is
Yeah.
what it seems like.
I mean, there was one state, because didn't they put someone to death recently that I think lynched someone in the 90s. It was the 80s or the 90s, that like the tail end of the 80s, or I forget
Yeah,
what
in the
state it
80s
was, but I
still
was like,
happened.
what in the,
Yeah.
like when you hear stuff like that.
And what is sad about all of this, I mean, so they were justifying slavery and the separation of these, that blacks should be in different places. And oftentimes they were using scripture. I mean, the amount of ways and whatever America has found to misuse scripture and become cultic is just nuts. I mean, it's like it's a breeding ground in some ways for cults to come in and just twist everything and get their own group started.
Right. I was just funny because I was listening to the audio version of John Finkelstein's book, Separation of Church and Hate. He was just talking about this, on the way over here, and he was talking how his Moses' brother was sent off to Egypt. Like, again, the whole story about it, and he said that you're going to be a slave to your brothers on it, and they use that as justification because slavery is mentioned in the Bible.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They do not say whether it's right or wrong.
Right.
It's just mentioned,
Mhm.
like many other things, and doesn't go against Jesus's teachings, which is what the Bible is supposed to be about. You have many different interpretations of it,
Right.
but Jesus's real teachings do not mention that.
Exactly.
As in it, they don't mention a lot of things.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And Paul, even, I mean, I know people will misuse Paul, but I think it is Paul or Peter, and he's my text guy, it talks about there is neither Jew nor Greek nor slave nor free, no whatever, that we all are now one in Christ. We're all on
that's
equal
in
footing.
the book of Galatians, written by Paul.
By Paul. Okay. I was like, started to say Paul, and then it's like, wait, was that Peter?
Well,
I know, right?
And that's funny
There's so many of them.
because a lot of this stuff that the Christian nationalists will do, they'll cite Paul and not Jesus.
Exactly. Exactly. Basically, what happens, and of course, this is not unique to Christian nationalism. This is any cult. They take their proof text. They have their proof text. So they have a canon within a canon, is what we've called it, and they have their text they go to. They don't care that that text may be taken out of context. They don't care that that is one obscure text that totally doesn't even really match any of the rest of the texts that say this is bad. But there's one text that says, yes, this is okay, or they say that is what it says. And so you stake your life on that one
Yeah.
text.
And the funny thing is, the guys that with the "We the People" tattoo, they'll be on Facebook saying, well, it says in Leviticus, a man shall not lie with another man. I'm like, yeah, it also says you shall not have a tattoo.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Or that you shouldn't eat pork, and yet they just have their
They
bacon.
love bacon.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean,
know.
most people have ham on Easter.
I mean,
so-
swine is called an abomination.
And doesn't it say something about if you have like a misbehaving kid, you're supposed to like stone them to
Yeah,
death or something?
exactly.
I'm like, you're not doing everything that the Bible tells you
Yeah.
to.
Right. I mean, and this is why there's an Old and there's a New Testament. I mean, Jesus literally says, do what I tell you. A new command I give you, that you are to love one another as I have loved you. And then goes on to even, point out, I lay down my life for you. And so if we're to love as he loved, then we're to lay down our lives. We're to not have this pride that we're better. I mean, because his disciples all through until after he's risen again are in this debate throughout the Gospels of who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom, who's going to have the best position, who's going to do this. The reason he's, washing their feet is because none of them want to humble themselves to the place of taking on the role of a servant because they all feel better than that. So he's the one that gets down on his knees and shows them. And then he says, do you know what I just did? I showed you how to treat one another. And so there's this whole thing that, as humans, we want a good place. We want to prove we're better than other people. But the whole point of the New Testament and the covenant and the new covenant is that Jesus laid down his life for us. And now we are to lay down our lives in service to others, which is a beautiful thing to do. But somehow it gets twisted into everything but that.
Right.
Right, and like we were saying before, it's not by the messages coming from above and brought down, and I don't understand why. Like even we got a great Pope now.
I enjoy it.
Pope Leo, love you, man. And let's bring it to the war. He had said, he came out and made a statement last week that Jesus would not want you to go to war on it. And now the Christian nationalists are like calling out the Pope who's quoting
Yes.
Jesus.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Anybody who quotes Jesus is free game for them because, I mean, yeah, you've
Have
been
you
watching a
listened
lot of
to
this.
Ever listened to anything of Hallie Beth Stuckey?
No.
She's hardcore Christian nationalist, but her favorite argument is that Jesus is God, therefore the Old Testament is his word too. And then she generally ignores the new altogether and goes and lives in the old to prove all of her Christian nationalist theology.
But I mean, anybody that speaks James Tallarico, I don't know if you know him. He's in
Oh,
Texas.
I
Awesome.
love
They
him.
have been tearing him to pieces.
They've been
'cause how
tearing
I
dare you
hope
love your
that he
neighbor?
makes it.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, and he's literally a pastor, a student. I don't know if he's
A seminary
he's a
student.
seminary student. I've listened to some of his sermons. I mean, and yet they're now trying to, say that they want him to be killed or then covered up with, crucified, his heart crucified, and it's like,
It's like, that's not what you said.
That's not
Yeah,
what you
so
said.
so podcaster Joshua Hames and then Brooks Pottinger, who's actually Pete Hegseth's pastor in Tennessee.
Right.
That's the one that
They were
said
the
it.
ones saying, well, yeah, I pray that God kills him, which is his heart, after a pause.
And then the other pastor's like, well, yeah, crucified with Christ. So it's like,
And
they say it and then try to cover it up with
Yeah.
religious sounding.
And the
words.
reason they say it is because he's calling you out and you don't like that. You don't like that he's holding a mirror up in front of
I
you
know.
so you actually have to see yourself and see
And
how ridiculous you sound and look.
And he does it in a brilliant way.
Mhm.
He does it in a loving way.
Yeah, loving way. Yeah.
That's the
Yes.
like he's not doing it like how I'm saying, hey, you're getting a mirror
Right.
held up so people can see just how terrible you are, and so hopefully you can see it so you correct it. But he's doing it in a much
He's doing it very kind. I mean, saying,
better.
I approve this message when they're telling how terrible he is. He's like, I approve this message because it's actually pointing out that, he's saying something that's right and they're complaining about it. So it's like, I approve this message.
Well, and the thing that I hated the
I love
most,
him.
they dug up an old statement where he said God is non-binary. And so I admit I've been trolling some of them on social media.
Yes.
Saying, so you're willing to be a heretic now to prove Tallarico wrong because they're essentially saying, well, God is male. And so I'm pointing out, according to orthodoxy, God is a spirit with no body or biology. Therefore, God is neither male nor female, non-binary.
Yeah. And it says God is not man. God is not a man. That
Yeah, if you went to, like, I went to Catholic school, they never once told us that God was man or woman. They never once even, I don't even think they ever brought it up. They might have
Because
said the thing
nobody's
about
ever
the
believed
spirit,
that.
Yeah.
but yeah, nobody knew.
I mean, in the flesh, I mean, Christ, obviously, every depiction we have of whatever, he was a man going around teaching, but that was his, earthly covering, he's still God in the spirit, and so it's interesting how it's always been considered a heresy to consider God is like us. It's always been a
So
heresy.
yeah, like I said, I've been trolling them with, okay, so to assign God a gender, you have to assign God a body, and now that's heresy in the classic sense.
Well, and then they
All
go,
so that you can own the libs.
So then is God a they them,
yeah.
right? The non-binary.
Well, but then you can even go, well, if God created Adam in his image
And Eve.
and Eve, or is it like he created Eve from Adam's rib? That means one of them would have had transition.
Right.
I don't understand how Eve wasn't created first, though. When babies are created, they all start out as girls, and then some of them, turn into boys or whatnot.
Don't bring science into a religious conversation.
But that we have proof of. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit there and say, no way. I think Eve was created first, and Adam was created from that. Or maybe God was like, I need to perfect this a little.
That's what I've always said.
Right.
God made Adam and then watched him wander around the garden for a
Realizes
while.
his mistake.
I need
oh
to
my goodness, I gotta get
Yeah, he's
Fix
not
a few
going to
things.
survive.
this
Fix a
is
few
not
things.
working out right.
Yeah.
We gotta make a woman.
He's sitting there talking to snakes and stuff.
Actually, I heard some data recently that, the old fundamentalism of literal 6 days and, Genesis and whatnot is actually waned amongst evangelical Christians of being literalists on that. Old Earth views and even theistic evolution views have increased. But it's like the new fundamentalism has become political power. And, this completely unholy comfort with empire and even joining empire.
Well, we see that with the pastors. We see it with the Grahams and the Paula Whites. I mean, they are very comfortable getting to rub shoulders with the people in the up of the government, and to the place that they're literally willing to defend them and sound non-biblical and heretical to defend the powers.
The pastor in Minneapolis, where the protesters came inside the church, David Easterwood, the ICE field office guy there in Minneapolis, is really kind of the model the Christian nationalists would love to proliferate big time, where, he's in this power of government authority during the week, and then preaching in church on Sunday. And so, the church is literally capturing the police power of the state.
Probably makes him feel special, makes him feel godlike, and he's...
And they do use Paul to justify this, by the way. So Romans 13 is one of their favorite chapters in the Bible, where Paul, writing to the Roman Christians, is instructing them that the government is ordained by God to execute wrath against evildoers, and if you do good, you don't have to fear and whatnot. Essentially, he's delivering them a survival message that, no, we don't want to fight the Roman Empire because they will annihilate us, essentially. But what started out as a first century, survival letter for Christians that had no power and were even illegal in the empire has now been flipped on its head as a justification to take the empire's power and say, yep, I'm working for God, executing wrath on the evildoers, which in their mind is those they deem immoral, whereas in Roman times, for example, it was essentially theft and murder and insurrection was what was considered the evil that the government is supposed to stop.
I have a question. Why are they so into that? The Roman Empire fell. So...
Well,
I don't understand why
doesn't it seem eerily similar, the whole thing about what's going on now?
Yeah.
No, I know. So why would they, if they already know how it ends, why would they be...
Okay, so this is the other thing.
I think I know where you're going here.
There's a eschatology. So eschatology comes in here.
Study of last things.
Which is study of last things. And there's two different eschatologies that play into here. So there is dispensationalism, which is one, way of looking at it. And there is...
Those are the people that believe the modern nation state of Israel is God's chosen nation.
And that anyone that blesses them will be blessed. So the only way for Americans to be blessed is to do whatever Israel wants and to take care of them. Then there is the post-millennials, which would be more the camp where the Hegseth probably falls into. And they believe that there is going to be a final, 1,000 years of
a
Christian,
golden age
age
of a Christianized world.
Of a Christianized world where everybody has basically come to Christ and everybody's Christian. The problem with that, I don't even care that if that's the case, whatever. I don't, God's going to do what God's going to do. But they take on, we need to help him. We need to help him bring on
God
this
is being
golden
too
age.
slow.
It's-
We're going to speed it
So
up
we're
by
going to
taking
get
the
into
reins of
government
power.
positions. The guy that went and took over, he wants to take over a town. He literally made videos. We're going to move to this town, and everybody that's like us, come move here, and we'll start taking on the town council. We're going to take positions all over the county. We're going to, we're going to Christianize this town and make it a Christian town. So their idea is to conquer. They've come to this desire that they want to conquer the world for God. So they believe they're righteous. The other ones that are, the dispensational, they are okay with the wars in the Middle East because it's going to bring on the Battle of Armageddon, which is
ones
going to
who,
bring
I was
Christ
just
back.
going to ask that. I was like, is
Yeah.
this what leads to like Armageddon, the rapture,
See,
the whole thing?
This is where I knew where you were going.
And that's
Like,
actually a very very interesting in the sense that whole rapture theology, Israel, Armageddon, blow up the Middle East theology didn't even exist until the 1830s with a man named John Nelson Darby, who was a nonconformist offshoot preacher in England, who came up with this framework. And then one of his followers, Cyrus Scofield, wrote a study Bible where he put all of these interpretive notes in the margins in the Bible, proposing this whole belief of the end times. And that got picked up in the early 1900s by fundamentalist evangelicals, which at that time there was this great fight over the fundamentalist versus modernist controversy, essentially conservative fundamentalist Christianity versus a more liberal social gospel type of Christianity. And the fundamentalists were drawn to this Scofield Bible because it was an extremely literalist interpretation. And the system that she mentioned is dispensationalism, is a very, very literalist way of understanding eschatology. But it became mainstream in American evangelicalism through that, and then exploded in popularity in the 1970s with a guy named Hal Lindsey, who wrote a book called Late Great Planet Earth, incorporated all this stuff into it. And the interesting thing is they even believed that the final events were going to unfold starting in 1988, because that was 40 years after the founding of the modern state of Israel. And 40 years in the Bible is a generation. And so they thought 1988 was going to be it when the 7 years of tribulation all began and the rapture and all this. Well, we're almost 40 years past that now, but
Is that why we go through it every few years? Like,
Yeah.
it's gonna be next week. I
Yep.
swear.
Yeah. And even though Jesus said, in other words, no man knows the day or the hour. And
Right.
Yeah.
I know.
You think he's going to tell you guys? No.
Although,
It's
Richard,
going to be a surprise.
I have to ask you, why don't you do a podcast?
I know.
Considered.
Yeah, much more interesting than us.
I know. I could sit there and just listen to you for hours.
But then, and so you should talk about how the post millennial and those are kind of at this point kind of working together in a weird way that is creating this stuff.
So post-millennialism is not talking about, after the millennial generation, of which I belong to, but it's talking about this concept of the millennium in the book of Revelation, chapter 20. And the dispensationalists are what's called premillennialists. So they believe Jesus is going to return before the millennium of Revelation 20. The postmillennialists believe Jesus returns after the millennium of Revelation 20. And it's understood that this millennium is this golden age on earth. And so, like she pointed out, the postmillennialist people believe that we are entering, either now or perhaps already have, or sometime in the future, this golden age of long centuries of Christianization, where the whole world is going to be Christianized, and the politics will become Christianized, and the arts will become Christianized, and everything will become
And isn't
Christianized,
there
and
like
so
supposed to be
on.
peace and stuff too? Or
Right.
yeah.
Although they seem to like war.
Right. I think the most disturbing thing about the Iranian war is Pete Hegseth's rhetoric about how it's a holy war.
Yes. And that's just, it's so wrong. And yet it's like we listen to the guy that we know his pastor was mentored from, and that, Pete Hegseth is,
So the leader of the Pete Hegseth is a member of a denomination called the CREC, the Communion of Reformed Evangelical Churches, I think it is.
oh, wow.
And it was founded in Moscow, Idaho by a man named Doug Wilson. And he is one of he's been working on this Christian nationalist project of his since the 1980s. And he incorporated a lot of his ideas from a guy who was even writing back in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, named R.J. Rushdoony. And Rushdoony was proposing taking theocratic civil laws out of the Old Testament that ancient Israel had and building society upon those. And so Doug Wilson picked up those ideas. He also incorporated the post-millennialist view of eschatology and the golden age and all that stuff into his thinking, and then merged it with the idea of taking over political channels to get this whole thing. But anyway, he founded this, he was co-founder or founder, I think might have been several people, but he's the most well-known one, this CREC as it's called. And my understanding is Hegseth actually moved down to Tennessee to join the CREC church he's a member of, and now they're planting one of these churches in D.C.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like their thought is like, okay, we're going to have these holy wars so we can force, or we're going to kill off everyone who's not Christian. So then when we have just Christians, then we'll have peace.
Yeah.
Because everyone will believe the
Because
same
that
thing.
really
It's
worked
like,
out in Christian history.
I know. That's why I'm like, what is the,
Right.
where is the
Crusades
logic?
really did a lot of great good. And then,
You're still going to have people fighting over lots of things.
Jesus says we'll have wars and rumors of
Even-
wars.
Well, the Nazis were Christians.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's scary. That's scary too.
It's just insane to me.
Well, and what's interesting is Idaho, my home state. It has so many weird groups in it. So Wilson is there, and his group is trying to, take over Moscow. And then up where I live, not very far north of us, was the skinheads and the Aryan nations. And
Jeez.
the problem was they were in a compound, and everybody knew they were weird. What I always heard as a kid was, just stay away from them. They're crazy, whatever.
Yeah, they're
But
out there.
then their leader got arrested. And I didn't even think anything about it. Everybody just acted like, oh, the leader got arrested. It's all gone. North Idaho isn't skinheads and, Aryan Nation anymore. But now I stop and think about it. It's like, so the leader was arrested. The compound was confiscated. But not everybody that was there got arrested. Not
Right.
everybody. Now they're just out there in North Idaho or wherever they choose to move to in Idaho, promoting their ideas as if they're normal people now because they're not in some weird compound. See, when they were in the compound, people knew to stay away from them. When you take away that compound.
And they're probably trying to get into elected offices around the
Right,
state.
and they may be, what's that guy that was trying to run for the governor in Idaho?
Ammon Bundy.
Ammon Bundy.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
I was gonna mention that because when he had wasn't it like a standoff or something
Yes.
that he was having
Yes.
in there?
And so Idaho is just it's unfortunately being taken out. So what was in a compound in a kind of confined, okay, they're weird, stay away from them, has now kind of been morphing, taking over
Well, and
Idaho in
it's
general.
like in the air up there. I mean, like her dad's neighbor, they literally have a flagpole in their yard with the Confederate flag flying from it, and they have a landscape and construction business. The dump trucks are painted orange with Confederate flags on the grills.
And when they're
geez.
questioned or complained
And the
about it, it's
business
just
name
heritage.
is Dixie.
It's heritage, not hate.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So your heritage
but-
was owning people.
But do you like Democrats? So why do you have the Democrat symbols all over your truck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
But so it's weird. And Christian nationalism, so it's not as easy of a package to unpack as like just Mormonism or Adventism or Jehovah's Witness or anything, because it has taken in people from all different religious backgrounds, and it has taken
There are
in
Catholic Christian
There's
nationalists.
yeah.
There are
There you go.
Pentecostal nationalists. There are the Doug Wilson, Pete Hegseth camp claims a reformed Christian background.
and then there's the guy down in Texas that we used to listen to until he got really weird.
He's a Baptist. Yeah,
He's a
Joel
Baptist.
Webben.
Yeah, Joel Webben. He's a Baptist. So it's like the Christian nationalism literally can take people from any tradition and pull them into this, weird version of thinking
This
they're
weird
following
fusion of church and state.
right.
Right, exactly. Brilliant transition there, because that's where I was going, because there's supposed to be a separation between church and state. And, we came here from religious persecution elsewhere. That's why this nation was founded.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And now we have all this going on, and we have this holy war in Iran with no plan, with the most incompetent people. And the most competent people, I think the Army chief of staff had gotten fired.
Yeah. And I've heard a chaplain got fired too. It's like, I wonder what he was trying to tell
So
them.
the silver lining in all of this, and history,
There is one.
Well,
Yeah.
it
Fingers crossed.
might take a little while, but the history proves that the more extreme the movement, the shorter it lasts, and then it fizzles because it doesn't work. And so you fire all the experts that know how to actually run anything because they're quote unquote secular or non-loyal or whatever. And you're left with just the ideologues that don't know their backside from a hole in the ground.
Well, quite frankly, that's my fear in it, is we're sending all these troops in, and quite frankly, they're going to get slaughtered.
I know.
If they do it. But to make your point is, that is probably what is going to turn this thing around.
Right. The more extreme they get, so in some ways it's this weird thing. The more extreme they get, the more people are going to suffer because of it. But the more extreme they get, the more people are going to say, I'm not going to deal with this. This is not okay. This is not what I signed up for. This is not what I thought was going to happen. And the abandoning of it is going to happen because, I mean, he's been doing research about it, and he's talking about how it will come to an end. It will. And I'm like, but there's going to be all these people suffer in the meantime, and that is the terrible
it's not
part of
going
it.
to be pretty.
On a positive note, I was speaking to our Senator Ruben Gaggo the other day, and I asked him that specific question: is I have kids of that age that they could potentially be drafted. And I asked him what his concern level was this, and he thought most likely there would not be a draft, that we already have enough military personnel. And his point being is, why would we want to send people into a war that they don't believe in?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That would be the worst thing that you can do.
Yeah. Right. And I think it honestly, that might be the one thing that fully divided the nation to where everybody's actually gets up in arms, because nobody liked the draft. And I don't think anybody's going to approve of a draft now. And
This
so,
war is historically, in an unprecedented way, it is unpopular.
I hope that he's right. I hope our senator's right. It's like there is already proof that the volunteer numbers for the military are already dwindling, because Hegseth came out and said, we've lifted the restrictions. You can now be 42. And if you were against that COVID-19 vaccine and you didn't get it and got kicked out for it, you can come on back.
Right.
And it's like,
And to the point, to wrap this kind of all up, is, okay, this is being preached in church, it's holy war, whatever,
Yes.
and are they going to make their kids sign up and
Right.
go fight this holy war?
I have no idea if they would.
No, I would think not.
Well, and speaking of it being in churches, not to get into a whole nother thing, but since we're in Kingman, we had to leave the church we were going to, because it went from what we thought was a normal church, and
It went from sermons about what Jesus taught
and how
to we are Christian Zionists and Israel, Israel, Israel.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's a great point to wrap this up, is on that note, is that you left the church. And I would think that other people that follow Jesus would see that message and go, I'm not behind this.
Right.
This isn't what Jesus was teaching.
Right. I have no idea if more people have left. There was a guy that left before us. We didn't know exactly why he had left, because we had missed apparently a key sermon in this
We
really
were up in
turning point.
Colorado.
And so he'd already left, and then we got back and went there Christmas weekend, and instead of it being anything about the birth of Jesus or any of that sort of stuff,
More
it was all
Christmas
about
stuff.
it was all about, how these other nations should just give their land to Israel, and that's just what they should do. And he literally wrapped up the sermon by saying, if you are leaning to the left, it is because you have left God, and God is going to leave you.
And if you're on the right, you were right.
You're right with God if you're on the right.
can I suggest one thing to this pastor preacher?
Yes, he's a pastor here in Kingman.
I looked this up today because I was having an argument with somebody about the whole Palestine-Israel thing. Folks need to look at the map of what Israel-Palestine used to look like and what it looks like today.
Where
Yeah.
Jerusalem was.
It's just, whoa, boy, what used to actually be Palestine that Israel has
Already
taken.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, it's insane.
That is the Holy Land.
Like, you don't need to, no, people should not give Israel any more
exactly.
land. They've already taken so much.
Right.
Yeah, and let's be clear about this. Just because we say that does not mean we're anti-Semitic.
Exactly.
No, it does not. But,
No, but
it's like,
you have to make that.
You
point.
have
No,
to make that. Yeah.
Because that
true,
accusation
but
is
like
thrown
just
at
just
slightest-
Google search for yourself. Like, look up what these maps used to look like from the difference between like the late 1940s until today.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
totally different.
It is vastly different. It is. I was like, oh wow, I didn't realize that has changed that much over the years.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, it's just, and it's not that we're anti-Semitic. It's not that we're against Jews. It's not that we have any of that. It's just this is all become wrapped up with political whatever, and it's an unholy it's an unholy marriage of saying you're Christian, but really you're honoring the state and becoming
and state power.
Yes, you're honoring the power that you can get by being in government and in control.
Which is
Yeah.
the most un-Jesus-like thing.
Like,
you
exactly.
can-
The whole
When I-
New Testament is against empire.
When I looked at those maps to me, like, and I am against genocide, those maps look like genocide.
Exactly.
That's what those maps
Well,
look
and then
like.
I mean, we didn't even mention ICE, but now we're seeing this trying to be done in our own country, where you just say, we just want to get rid of, what's that number they say they want to get rid of?
100 million.
We just want to get rid of
Wow.
100
Essentially a
million
third of
people
the
out of our
American
country.
population.
So a
Wow.
third of American population, we just want them to be
Yeah,
deported
because
or
because you
whatever.
don't because we don't want immigrants.
Right.
When
And
Jesus
Well,
was an
this-
immigrant, or his family.
right. He was
And
not
what
an
if these
American.
folks are Christian?
They
A lot
are.
of these
And that's
immigrants
the
are
point.
Christians.
A lot
Like,
of these
what-
immigrants are
Hispanics
Christians.
are Christians at higher rates than white people.
Yeah.
And there are Hispanic pastors that came here legally with the paperwork, and their paperwork was delayed. You know how it is. And they are now in jail, in detention because they're not legal.
Right. We just heard a
supposedly.
story of one in Alligator, Alcatraz.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and we take away the
insane.
protective rights of all Haitians, and we're going to send them back into whatever's going on there. And Haitians are Christians.
Exactly. No, it's not that we're against.
And they have protective status.
And
I don't know
Not
how many
anymore.
times
They did.
Well, right.
They did.
Until,
Well, I think the courts. It's in the
until
courts right now. but-
2025, but they have had extension after extension of their protective status ever since it started until Trump did.
And I think
Revoked it
what
or
this
overturned
really
it.
brings you down to is right now they're working together. So right now there's, people that are Reformed, there's people that are Baptist, there's people that are dispensational, there's people that are Catholic, all getting mixed up into this Christian nationalism, but they keep narrowing the gate. I mean, I've heard
Doug
Wilson.
Wilson spilled the beans the other day, where he talked about in his envisioned society, Catholics would not be allowed to have their parade with Mary
Or even
and
pictures of Jesus,
pictures
because
of
he
Jesus
doesn't
and
think
all
it's
that,
right to
because of
have.
the Reformed interpretation. That's
Right.
all wrong.
And he only did that because of what Pope Leo said.
Yeah, but so he's beginning to show they want to narrow it down to just their belief,
specific
their specific.
brand, even.
And
It's
so-
not. They will talk like, well, we want it to be a broad Christian nation where the Apostles' Creed, which is the most basic, broadest statement of Christian belief there is the only thing that guides us. But then he's talking about, well, no, if you're Catholic, you won't be able to do your thing in public, and that extends to numerous other traditions that aren't like theirs.
I think
specific
he said
one.
somebody else couldn't have a parade. I can't remember what other group it was.
Well, of course, they mentioned Hindus and
Oh, okay. So of course,
Muslims and stuff.
obviously they couldn't have theirs, and I would guess it would eventually get to where Jews couldn't have theirs either, and all this sort of stuff. So it begins again. They start off with, oh yeah, everybody's as long as you're Christian, but it's gonna narrow, and it keeps narrowing the farther they go into it, to where now Catholics are not okay in it, and that
Very
group's not okay.
Hitler-esque. Hitler didn't like the Catholics.
Yeah, it
either.
keeps narrowing down.
Now, and I know that it's not PC to call them Nazis.
Oh, that's why I said
But-
Hitler-esque.
Yeah. But-
It's reminiscent of that. Not
If you
he's
don't,
not Hitler,
if you
but
don't want to be a Nazi, be called a Nazi, don't act like a Nazi.
Don't do
I don't
Nazi
like one.
adjacent things.
Yeah.
right.
So I think we could go on forever about this. I think that's a good place to wrap this up.
Hey, it is
And-
a fascinating subject.
and
Yeah.
thank you both. You're two of our favorite guests.
I know. I just love you guys.
and you should do this more often. We have many more things that we want to discuss with you in the future.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yes, and when you start your own podcast, we'll come on your podcast.
Awesome.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
All right, so let's wrap this up. We'll see you next week at Pod Jam. Bye.
Bye,
y'all.
y'all.
Bye.